Hi everybody, this is going to be my review of Switchblade Shorties by PISKOR. So this comic was originally, first I think it was published on Ed Piskor's Patreon, and then I know it was on Webtoons, and then it was going to be published by Abrams Books, but then that changed, and then it was published by, or crowdfunded on Zoop, and then published by his family. And then I think that's very nice that originally it was a $7,500 or $75,000 deal, and then I think the family raised over that amount. I want to say 100,000 something, and I think all the money or most of the money went directly to them. So I got this in the mail, and I usually don't say this, but I actually thought it was a very beautiful looking book, hardcover of course. Whoops. And here we have the back cover, and here we have the characters. And the first thing I did read was, well, I wanted to see what they said on this back jacket. So there you have that. And then I got the one with this cover since I saw the original cover. It has this circle on it, and well, to me, it looks a little satanic. So, and I didn't really want that on my bookshelf, so that's why I got the cover with this jacket. And I want to say maybe that was why other people, like, I saw this was the one that sold the most, so I wonder if other people thought that way, or they just like this. I mean, I do like this, where they're all driving the car, except this does not really happen in the book, but this character does have this car. Is it pedal powered? Is that what it is? So here you can see the characters. Now, here is a foreword by Rob Liefeld. So my review of this is that basically, at first I wasn't really a fan of the art, since I'm not really a fan of this R. Crumb sort of looking style. It's a little more grungy than I like. The inking is a little heavier than what I like, but I ended up liking the art. It's very detailed. There's a lot of these lines. It's not hashing. I don't know what it is. It's almost like it almost reminded me of Hirohiko Araki's style. But basically, the format of this comic is that it is supposed to be similar to newspaper comics, daily newspaper comics, but instead of it being episodic, it's sequential or serialized. And usually you think, oh, every day is just a one-off, but there is an overarching story, and I found that very meaningful. Because that's one of the things I like about the daily comics, when they have this sequential or serialized stories. So the first page introduces, the first page introduces the characters. Soda Pop, she has a lisp. Pinky, well, I guess she just has an African American accent. I don't know. Sheena, she does not have any sort of accent. Charlie Horse, she stutters because she is like cowardly. And then Foster, she has like a southern accent. And initially I saw this as because he has all these characters, and I was afraid I would get them mixed up, but actually I did not, because it seems these three are the core characters, and then we're introduced to them first, and then the other two, they come in later, so they're not all introduced at once to confusion. This one is easy to remember because she doesn't even go to the school these four go to. And then this one is easy to remember because like she's like cowardly. So so all the characters are unique. They have unique names, unique designs, and unique ways of talking, and unique personalities too. So the characters are very fun. They're energetic. And they have a charm to them, especially in the way they talk. I mean, you don't really see these sort of I guess, imperfect way of talking in comics, although it's realistic, I would say. Or maybe they show up a lot in indie comics. I don't know. So the first page introduces the overarching, I guess, story where their friend is missing and they want to find him to get $5,000. And then each time there's like a subplot. Like first you kind of get introduced to the characters and you kind of get to know them and care about them. And then there's a little bit of danger, at least what I thought it was going to be dangerous, where basically these two men, like they're trying to, I guess, lure the kids to like somewhere sort of dangerous so they can do something bad to them. That's what I thought, but ultimately that does not actually happen. But I was, oh, there's actually some danger here. And then to my surprise, there's an alien involved in the story. I was like, what? I did not expect there to be an alien. And the vibe of the entire comic is sort of like the Goonies and E.T. and then a bunch of like monster movies, or kind of like Stranger Things or something like that. So that was the end of the first story arc where they saved this alien. And then it's interesting, each chapter has its own color background page. And I think that's clever. But also, I think the style is supposed to be like index cards. At first, I thought it was like binder paper. But now I'm thinking it's index cards because there's different colored index cards and not different colored binder paper in real life. And also the form factor, I mean, these almost look like blown up index cards, right? So then there's some interesting things with the art. There's like the Kirby Crackle. There's something here with these cups and the wires where the sound, you can see like almost like lightning or something. And then so the place where I really started thinking about this index card thing was in the third story arc, where it's from the point of view of like a new character that's also the antagonist, or at least just for this chapter. So I thought this was interesting because these don't even have lines on them, and I'm not sure why. Well, I have an idea of why, because it's like I'm like thinking like this is like from the point of view of like an antagonist or like a villain, and it's also from the point of view of like a new character that's antagonist. And I'm wondering if this is supposed to be a reference to Halloween. I think that's with Mike Myers, right, where you see from the point of view of his mask, and like he does things to troll the characters and get them in trouble. And I'm glad he gets his comeuppance at the end. So that was that story. And then there's a longer story called Full Moon in Steel Valley, and this introduces the idea of a werewolf, I guess, going around doing stuff in the town they live in. And there's a little bit of foreshadowing where the dad of the missing boy is stumbling around, so you can kind of easily put two and two together. And then I want to say, so I read the entire book, and then I went to the Webtoons page, Webtoons, to see if there's any more. But this was the last comic published there on March 31st. So everything afterwards is not available online. So I'll try not to show any of it. But there was one thing here that I really liked. And there's a lot of cartoonish violence in this comic. But it's fun, it's kind of fun to look at. And it's cartoonishly graphic, cartoonishly gory, cartoonishly violent, yeah. So there's this page where he's shooting the werewolf, and then he's blocking the bullets, And he like, what? He killed him? And then he uses the guy's head and spine. Wow, look at that. It's almost like popping out at you. And then he hits him across with this. So I thought that was very entertaining. And it made me think of, there's this interview where this lady is asking Tarantino, like, why do you have all this gruesome, graphic violence? And Tarantino's like, because it's just so much fun, Jan. Get it? So that's what I was thinking of. And there's a lot of these moments where in the comic, it's just like, it's very fun to read, entertaining to read. And I'm just like, I can imagine Ed Piskor like laughing to himself, just having fun drawing, or first coming up with these ideas and then drawing them, you know, for all of us to read. Like, it's fun to read. It's laughable. It's amusing. So then there's something interesting at the end where the last story arc, after everything is kind of resolved, there's like this interesting, like, it's like a time skip where it kind of skips ahead to the future and then it flashes backwards to the present, and then there's like a little final story. And then it's also interesting because the final thing here is it's all in color. So we get to see all the characters in color, although obviously we've seen them on the cover and stuff. And then the very last thing is, again, it flashes back forward in time, like a time skip. The interesting thing is, though, just from the dialogue alone, you kind of get like a bunch of implied information, like which characters live and survive and whatever, but you just don't know how, you know, they survive and stuff. So it seems like Ed Piskor has a bunch of, had a bunch of things planned out for this story. So it's interesting. There's a lot of mystery and intrigue. And then, of course, the last page here, you have Soda Pop threatening Ed. And there's something interesting going on with the glasses here, with the reflection in the eyes. So, I mean, you kind of want to wonder, like, how far ahead did he plan out? And are we going to see it? You know, are we going to see it? And then the last special thing in this book is, I guess, the original conception or a rough draft or something. And basically it's just introducing the same sort of storyline. I want to say these were colored by Copic markers. The interesting thing is, though, the characters don't really have their speech impediments. Soda Pop doesn't have her lisp, and Foster doesn't really have a southern accent, but Charlie Horse does stutter, and she is sort of cowardly. Yeah. There's a monster in this story. I thought it was a gorilla, but it just ends up being Bigfoot with these giant nipples. Okay. And then, so at the end, there's this art drawn by Tom Scioli. And here you can really get the vibe that that is just a bunch of kids going on adventures, and they encounter like these monsters. And then at the end, there's also a word from Ed Piskor's brother Bobby, as well as images from the family. And then here you have, of course, his catchphrase, the cartoonist kayfabe catchphrase. And then here, I thought this was like another one of those blown up panels, but here you can see there's Bone, and then Hip Hop Family Tree, and Sega, and then Grimm Fairy Tales. So So overall, when I first bought this or crowdfund or anyways, when I first saw this, I was like, I'm not so sure about the art style, but I still bought it, and then I ended up liking the art. And the story, I was like, I don't know about the story, because like, is it going to be like an anthology or like one shots or? But I ended up liking the story because there's an overarching storyline throughout the entire thing, so I ended up liking it. And the characters were very fun to read. And well, so the other thing that appealed to me about this was that in the past I wrote, or I created a comic and I put it on Webtoons, and it was also inspired by daily newspaper comics. And I also had this overarching storyline thing where, you know, there would be story arcs basically. So, and I wasn't really sure if that was a good idea, and I wasn't sure if people would like it, or if it would be something like, if it was a good idea or not, because I've heard like that at least the people who publish the newspaper comics, they always want, or they want, you know, the comics to be episodic rather than sequential, or serialized. I forget what the word is. But so I just drew it for fun and stuff, and it's for free or whatever. But so I thought it was very interesting that Ed Piskor also did something very similar. And obviously this is all in the past now, and this was published in the past as well on Webtoons and whatever. But I didn't read it at the time, and probably I would not have had any interest in reading it. Although I am like a fan of Cartoonist Kayfabe, I didn't watch or listen to all of their videos, but I probably would not have learned about this otherwise, or have, you know, purchased this otherwise. You know, so it's very interesting. So I just like to say, I guess, thanks to the family for getting this published. I ended up liking it. I ended up really liking it. And hopefully you all maybe bought it too, or maybe this encourages you to check it out. So leave a comment below if you read this, or what are your thoughts on it. Let me know. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.